The Process Podcast, breaking down the daily habits, processes, and tools of high achievers. Now, here's your host, Brad Wilson.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is the host of the Process Podcast and creator of Mentally Invincible, Brad Wilson. Just in case you haven't already, this is a friendly reminder to subscribe and review The Process with Brad Wilson on iTunes. It's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit thing you can do to support the show and ensure that it goes on very well into the future. On today's show, my guest is Adam Kreek. Adam's an Olympic rowing gold medal winner, 3-time World Rowing Championship winner, 6-time World Rowing Cup champion, TED Talker, author, keynote speaker, executive business consultant, and all-around good guy. I mean, the dude's a freaking stud who I believe that is capable of anything he puts his mind to. He graduated from Stanford University. Just a very high-achieving guy, the definition of high achievement. What really stood out to me about Adam in our talk is that he just has an energy and excitement about him that's tangible. It's pretty much impossible to hear him talk, listen to his stories, hear his wisdom and hard-earned life lessons, and not want to just set big goals for yourself and climb the closest and tallest mountain that you can find. And I find that when you have the rare opportunity to hear somebody whose words can strike you like a lightning bolt, give you a new perspective on the short time we have on this planet, you just can't afford to pass it up. They don't happen often enough. So to say I'm excited to share this conversation is a pretty massive understatement. Adam and I discuss the importance of coaches in our lives, how to create systems that hold us accountable even if we're big and lazy. Those are Adam's words about himself. Why you probably shouldn't drink absinthe in the Swiss Alps after winning a world-class rowing competition, and so much more. Without any further ado, I give you my conversation with Adam Kreek. Adam, my man, how we doing?
Oh, life is good. Life is good, Brad.
Very good. Me too. I heard that you have an authentic cowbell from the Swiss Alps.
Oh, yeah, yes, I do.
Could you tell me about how you managed to get that cowbell?
Oh, how did I manage to get the cowbell? The cowbell actually still is used. We have marathons that run through my town here, Victoria, BC. So I pull it out once a year and I ring the cowbell as the marathoners go by. And nice. I get a lot of great Will Ferrell comments. We need more cowbell. But the cowbell came from experience I had in Lucerne, Switzerland. My background is, I'm an Olympic and international rower, and one of the most attended races of the year every year is held in Lucerne, Switzerland. It's a beautiful location. The water is perfect for racing. Rowers from all over the world come and race, and they test each other. And it's the final race before the World Championships. It's the final race before the Olympics. It's a big deal in the world of rowing. We go there. There's like any high performance racing environment. There's a lot of nerves. There's a lot of energy. You're existing in a very high energy state that's unfamiliar at times, uncomfortable. And sometimes afterwards you want to blow off steam after the races. And on the race course, you're looking up and you're seeing cows grazing and you're hearing the cowbells. So one year, we had just finished this race, and in the background there's a mountain. It's called Mount Pilatus, and my teammate Jake and I decided that we wanted to climb Mount Pilatus after our races. We won the gold medal in the men's 8. That was awesome. Jake was racing in the men's 4. He ran the men's 4, and so we were just pumped. We'd run our races, and now it was time to go, climb Mount Pilatus. And there is a tradition afterwards. All the rowers go to an Irish pub in Switzerland, as you do. we decided that we were going to go to this pub and after we've climbed the mountain. So afterwards we go and I throw all this stuff in my backpack. I throw some bread and peanut butter and power bars and a bottle of absinthe, because we were saying, well, that's we're going to the party afterwards. We want to make sure that we're not behind on the energy. We want to have this exciting. We just want to have a good time on the mountains and, let off some steam, and then we can, dial in for training for the, the final race, the World Championships that were later that year. So we take the bus to the bottom of the mountain and we start climbing up. We kind of get past the tree line, and it's a beautiful view, right? It's, the Swiss Alps. So we're up there. We're just soaking in the scenery. We're absolutely loving it. And
how high do you have to climb?
I wish I knew off the top of my head. I could Google it maybe, but off the top of my head, I don't know how high that was. I'm assuming a couple thousand meters, but not sure, because
I was just wondering, like the time frame of how long it took you to climb and then come back down and then show up well and drunk at the get together. At the get together,
well, we took about three hours. 3 hours to climb up. So we were hustling up, and we got there and we saw the sun was getting close to the horizon. Our hope was that we could have made quick enough time. At the very top, there's a gondola down right to the base. And so our hope was to get right to the top, take the gondola down, and we didn't have enough time. So we get up there and then we're looking around and we see these cows, and we say, like wouldn't it be great to have a souvenir? To have a cowbell. And so the cows were just hanging out and they're clanging. So we're holding out this grass, trying to coax the cows towards us. The cow kind of looks at us and like, Brr. And then they're not interested in the grass. There's lots of grass everywhere. And so we start to get despondent and say, well, I don't think we're going to get these cowbells. And I pull out one of those, those gooey power bars. I don't eat them anymore, but back in the day, it was that was the thing that everybody ate when they were trying to pack portable nutrition, were these like gooey cinnamon power bars. And I started eating it, and the cow perked up. It was like, Marr. So I held out the power bar, and the cow started coming, sniffed it, and it started liking the power bar. So I sniffed it, and so as it was sniffing, I was close enough to the cow. I was able to kind of jump on the back of the cow, and it started bucking, and I was like, undoing the cowbell, and the cowbell came off, it clanged on the ground, and the cow ran away, and we got a second cowbell, and we're like, yeah, we got cowbells. And so, so Jake and I were excited. We started taking pictures, and we won our gold medals of the race, and we got our cowbells, and now we're going to go to Pickwick's. This is the best day ever. This is amazing. And it's going to pull out the bottle of absinthe, and it's like, let's make sure we're not behind on the energy. We're going to be, right fueled up for when we hit there and we're with everyone else, and don't want to be behind. But seems like, rowing an international level, a rowing race at the red line, then climbing halfway up a mountain, really reduces your ability to metabolize alcohol. And so we have a couple drinks and start heading down the mountain. And then, my memory kind of goes black. What Jake says, you're just, I knew you had had too much when you just started saying, I love you. I love you. I love you, Jake. Like every minute it was like, it was you're out in nature with your buddies. It's a good time, obviously. But then the next memory that comes into my mind, I'm just out of the blackness. I'm stumbling down the side of a mountain in, ankle to knee deep mud, grabbing onto these trees, thinking like, where the heck am I? Jake's nowhere to be found. I stumble out on this road and I start walking along the road. So I'm walking, and finally it gets to be like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm like, I've got to give up here. And so I go and I end up finding this box on near a church, and there's some plastic sheeting. So I take this, like the wrap that you wrap goods and sundry on the top of pallets. It's like I was just wrapping myself up, and fell asleep, and then I wake up in the morning. I hear machines moving around, so I pop out and I'm kind of scared. And there's these Swiss German guys, and they're like fluorescent pink and yellow Euro construction suits. So then I stumble out to the road. I catch a car, and the guy picks me up and drives me into town. Yeah, I get to the hotel, and Jake had carried both the cowbells back. He had caught the flight. He had made it there safely. Myself, I made it to the airport. Caught a new flight. Paid a stupid tax of like $500, and then
got a cowbell though.
Got a cowbell. Then, if you want to take a lesson from this, right? What is the mental toughness lesson that I learned from this experience? Because at the end of the day, it was a hilarious story. It was a great experience. Everybody laughed about it, and it was a ton of fun. But the emotional fallout on the other side, that people don't necessarily talk about more, was that I felt really guilty about it. I was really sad that I'd let down my team. I was sad that I let down myself and made a couple of bad choices. And more than that, I was feeling hyper restricted by the high performance environment. Here I was, training for the Olympics as a rower. I was, waking up at 5:30 every morning, and my day was pretty much scheduled until 9:30 at night, where we had 3 practices a day, 6 meals a day, naps and recovery that was slotted in, technical sessions, video sessions, as well as, 5 to 7 hours of training. And we'd be doing this from Monday through Saturday, every day for 50 weeks a year. And so here I was enduring this massive schedule with an immense amount of discipline, and feeling like I was a robot, feeling like I was losing a little bit of myself. I wasn't my, young, free self who could be, impulsive and, exciting. I was becoming a boring person that I didn't recognize. And so it was a bit of a crisis of confidence, in myself. And I really questioned after this experience. I said, well, if I'm doing this, maybe there's something in me that just doesn't want to go to the Olympics anymore. Maybe maybe this isn't cut out for me. Maybe I just don't have what it takes to go that extra mile. The first practice back after, my coach, he really kind of leaned into me, and he said, "Hey, Dick, he asked his usual questions, which was, do you want to be an Olympic champion?" And I'd say for most of the time up to that point in time, he'd say, "Do you want to be an Olympic champion?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I do." And it would harden me on. And that question would just make me want to work harder. And that time he asked me that, and I was like, "No, I don't. Today I don't want to be an Olympic champion. Bye." And so I went and I took a couple days to just recover, because it was a physically exhausting event, first of all, and then 2, just like emotionally process and see if this was a path I wanted to take. And I still wasn't sure. I wasn't sure of that. And I didn't have the confidence in myself to actually take the journey. And the big turning point, I think, happened when I actually sat down with my coach. I was honest with him. I told him what I was thinking. I told him what I was feeling. And he looked at me and he said, not in these words necessarily, but he said, you're a good guy, and good people make mistakes. And if you're willing to, harden on and to keep hammering, we're happy to have you back, and we're happy, to work with you through this. And that was really what I needed. From that point forward, I felt an intense amount of debt that I needed to repay. And it almost, this negative experience almost made me work harder, because here I was in a team, and I'm like, I'm not going to let these guys down. Here I am in this boat. I can't, I've got to give it everything and more. I've got to push forward. So, from a mentally invincible standpoint, sometimes we can take these soul crushing mistakes that we commit and use them to harden on and to actually be stronger and to be a better force of nature.
This was a little bit before 2008 Beijing Games, right?
Oh, this was 6 years before that.
Oh, wow. So this was before Athens.
This was before Athens, yeah.
Okay, so Athens, your crew, y'all faced a pretty crushing defeat in the Olympics. You finished fifth after you won the Worlds, right?
Yeah, we won the World Championships. After the Mount Pilates debacle, we came together. We won the I think it was in Milan that year. We won the Milan World Championships. We had a very impressive run for a long time, but then going to the Athens Olympics, we cracked. Our team cracked from the inside out. We didn't have the ability to support one another when crisis came on, and it was devastating. Because it wasn't devastating finishing fifth in the world is like from an external perspective is like, wow, that's still pretty good. And what crushed us and what hurt in our soul is that we knew we had more. We had much more. And I think maybe that was we bring it back to the Pilates story. Afterwards, the same kind of guilt existed, right? I have more inside me. Like this is not my best self. I can have fun, but I can't have fun at the expense of others. I don't want to hurt others when I'm having fun, and I don't want to hurt others when I'm. That was the downfall, and it was the same thing after Athens. It was crushing. I felt like I let down my teammates most of all, and not achieving your potential is a heavy burden to carry.
What was different about the Beijing Olympics that allowed you to come away with gold?
Well, we had something I call shared leadership, in that when cracks started to appear in our team culture, we had strong and skilled people who could step up and fill those cracks. We leaned too heavily on our coach and possibly our stroke man in Athens, whereas in Beijing, we are a team full of leaders. A great example in Beijing was we get on the race course, and our stroke man, Kyle, who's an incredible athlete, very, very strong, our stroke man.
Could you define what stroke man is?
If you think of an 8-person rowing boat, there's 8 people that sit one behind the other, and the stroke man sits right in the front. Everybody looks at the stroke man. The stroke man's responsible for setting pace, for leading the boat, essentially. Not just as a physical leader or a technical leader, but often, an emotional and spiritual leader as well of the crew. Got into the race course, and Kyle was just overcome with nerves. And he's like, "Kreek, I can't say anything. I'm so nervous. I just need to focus on my job. Can you say something?" That by no way was a detriment to Kyle or his ability to lead or his ability to influence outcomes. It was actually a response that showed he was stronger. You're strong enough to ask for help with someone you trust. And wow, it was, that's what we had in Beijing that we didn't have in Athens. The ability to lean on one another when the going got tough. We could do that in Athens, to be fair, but we're much, much better at it in Beijing.
And if he didn't come to you and say that, there's a good chance that he wouldn't have been the leader that you needed that day in Beijing, right? That everybody would have suffered and you may have fallen apart again. So it's a testament, I think, always to ask for help and, humble yourself and let people know that I need help. Can you help me? This is what I'm struggling with. And everybody just gets stronger.
It's true. No one is an island. We've heard that before. We need one another. It's so important.
You mentioned your coach, Mike Spracklin. Could you tell me a few of the advantages of having a world-class coach in your life? And secondly, how do you use and apply those lessons you learned in your life today?
Well, the importance of having a coach is that you have someone to ask honest questions and to make sure that you're not lying to yourself. We have a very, when I look at myself, I see someone who's weak and lazy and stubborn and likes to tell myself that I'm strong and hardworking and and flexible. And the beauty of a coach is that, especially when you have a high level relationship with that coach, you develop an interdependence where the coach can give you honest feedback and tell you when you're not living your best self, when you're not living your best life. And, beyond anything like that, that's what Mike Spracklin gave me. He gave me the ability to see and acknowledge my flaws and constantly work on them to just be a better man, to be a better rower, to be a better person. And so then how does that come into my life now that I'm a management consultant? I myself am an executive coach, and I deliver these keynotes all over North America and Europe. And I have coaches, right? I have coaches who coach me through keynotes. I just had a guy that I'm working with, Ian, and he's a professionally trained clown and a jazz musician. And so I'm working with him to up my skills to be a better keynote presenter, so that when I'm in a room live with other people, I can speak in a way that moves, that's authentic to me, and communicate my points. So here I've got a coach. I also have a mental training coach, Bob Babinski. I work with him on a regular basis. So when I'm going through challenges and I call it Bob, and Bob just gives me what I need and helps push me through it. And in the past, I've also accessed coaches for different purposes to up my. After the Olympics, when I was moving into the business world, I didn't have some of the professional skills I needed, like time management or managing my calendar or using my email effectively, and all these things you need just to operate a business. So I got some business coaches and some and these sorts of things. And even in my life, as now I'm an executive coach, and I tend to work with C-suite executives who need to have distance from their colleagues and their teams, because leadership is partially about distancing yourself from others and creating a slight bit of a barrier. You can't overshare with the people that you're leading. It can work to your detriment. And so I act as the trusted ear to help when someone needs to vent or needs to punch through an idea and say, is this the right way to deal with the conflict? Is this the right way to deal with the challenge that I'm having with my leadership team, with my staff, with my board of directors? Is this a good idea?
What's something related to training that you used to strongly believe, but you've recently changed your mind? And what led to that change?
As you get older, training changes. And you go through different phases. When I was younger, I was just training to push my body. I got to push my body, push my body, push my body, push my body. And when you get to a point in your early 30s where you stop being able to push your body as much and your body starts pushing you. And so you've developed this mental skill set to push your body to the limit, but that's not as functional. You have to be smarter about when you push it to the limit, because as our body ages, it's more prone to injury, and it recovers less effectively than it did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So I'd say one thing that has changed is just been my approach to physical training as I've aged, and acknowledging that I have to periodize the spaces of in which I push my body to the limits. And to be honest, now that I'm a dad, I've got 3 kids. I run a small business, and I'm active in my local community. I train for very different purposes. I train to have lots of energy. I train to be fit for life. I train to feel good. And that was very different from when I was an Olympic trainer or training for the Olympics, where I would just train to be the fastest rower in the world. So that's also changed.
How do you train in your daily life for energy?
I set a goal. I believe physical training is better when you have a concrete goal. So right now I have a goal to climb the highest mountain on Vancouver Island, which is called the Golden Hind. It's it will be beautiful. It'll take us 3 days to do it. It's going to be amazing. We got another goal to ride a bike race called the Tour de Victoria. So I have these goals, and I set them, 6 months, 8 months in the future. So then, when it's winter time, you don't feel like doing it. You think forward to, if I don't do this training, that thing that I've committed to doing with these other people is going to be awful. So I just need to keep doing it. But for me, it's, the first part is to have a goal. Next thing I try to do is to train at least a few times a week with other people. And I know I'm motivated by other people. I won an Olympic gold medal in a team sport for a reason. I like doing things with other people. I'm a team guy. So, and they also find that when you train with other people, if you have a workout buddy, you train harder, you're more likely to show up, you feel less pain. There's a lot of benefits to it. So I train with other people. I try on Wednesday mornings to go with this group called November Project, which is basically an outdoor boot camp. It's kind of like fitness church. You go there and just get pumped up and fit, and everyone's super positive, and this supports one another. On Fridays, I've got a local hill. I run up and down that with my buddy. We've been throwing on 65-pound backpacks these days. So we run up and down and then finish by swimming in the ocean. And then I'll do other things with my kids. We go running in the field or, run them to school, try to do walking. And I've got a rowing machine in my garage, an RP3 rower. So I sit on that a lot. And then, random bits. I travel a lot for work. So I'm on airplanes and walking through airports and going to hotels and conference rooms. So I've switched to I don't have a roll-on carry-on. I've got it. It's a carry-on. So I'm this weird, and I'm kind of a big dude too. So I'm this weird big guy who's walking through the airport and I'm carrying my baggage instead of rolling it. But, it's little things like that, just trying to, and even today I had to go to the chiropractor. Instead of taking the car, I take my bike, try to walk and bike, use active transportation, try to move my body as much as I can, and have a couple focused workouts throughout the day, and then just try to increase active volume as I'm able.
How do you keep yourself accountable when you're on the road, you're in hotels, you're away from your circle of people?
One thing I did, I started to lead free workouts at my conferences. So I said, if you're bringing me in to speak, guess what? I'm going to lead a free workout in the morning. And sometimes, some people like working out, other people hate it. And but usually there's at least one or two. Sometimes you have 50 people show up. And I found it was about 2 years ago. I was 20, 30 pounds overweight. I was fat and unhappy, and I was I gotta get fitter again. And again, this was by leading the workouts. I was showing up and I was working out. I was having fun. And then the other way of staying accountable, it's it's this thing, right? Texting with your buddies. What did you do today? Are you staying fit? And, I'm texting them, they're texting me. They show me their workout. They've done a massive workout. I'm oh, look at that guy. He's getting fit. I gotta step up. And so it's just creating social drivers. I can't do it on my own. I'm a weak, lazy, stubborn person.
I mean, that's an awesome idea. Leading a workout. Once you commit, once you say it and put it out there, you've really got no choice but to show up at that point, right? How can you deliver a keynote speech to a bunch of people and you just didn't show up in the morning? You can't do it.
Well, and this is another thing too. You're better performer on stage, at least I am, when you've worked out, because you burn off a lot of this adrenaline and cortisol. And there's always going to be those performance nerves that come when you stand up in front of people. If you look at ancient biology, the only time people were paying attention to you 10,000, 20,000 years ago is when you were fighting for dominance or everyone was trying to beat you up. So we're kind of wired to just not want to get attention from other people. And so you have this fight and flight thing that shows up. But again, when I find if I'm giving a speech and I've actually exercised, I know that, again, it's building up that why. Like, why are you working out? Well, I'm working out to be healthy for my wife, for my kids, for my business. I'm working out to be a better keynote presenter. I'm working out to deliver my business more effectively to my coaching clients. I'm doing this because I've committed to climbing a mountain with a group of people, and I need to be fit. I don't want to be that guy at the back who everybody's dragging forward. I want to be the guy who's helping. Dragging
the guy in the back.
Exactly. But I've been dragged, and you drag other people, and it's all good. But it's just trying to think of all the reasons why you want to do it, and then the hardest part I find is always like when I've fallen off the fitness train. It's always like the first 6 to 8 weeks, and you're just going. You're so slow and you're not very fit and you don't get the energy return right off the bat. So like for the first 6 to 8 weeks, you're going through it and you're like, I'm training, but I feel worse than I did before. I feel awful. Why am I doing this? But then, the body typically adapts within 6 to 8 weeks. And after you've kind of recovered from that first training piece, then your body all of a sudden just starts to kind of like lift up, and it's like, I've got more energy, I've got more power, I can give her. Again, we're talking about mental invincibility here on this podcast. Like, what makes you mentally strong? Being physically strong. There is the link between your mind and body. And when you feel strong physically, your brain comes along for the ride.
So one concept that you talked about in your book is using the energy of stress in a positive way. Could you tell me more about that? Well,
stress is performance energy. And in my book, I'm talking about my TED talk that I delivered. And I remember standing backstage, and especially as an athlete, you're used to using stress as a performing tool. When you're sitting on the start line of the Olympics, the nerves are there, and you start taking deep breaths just to engage your rest and digest hormones. And you say, thank you, nerves. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me the strength to perform. And it was the same thing, like standing at the back of the stage, and picture you're about to get on stage. You're not a trained performer. This isn't what you do. You're used to being a rower who trains in the dark. I'm an engineer, and I'm like, I'm ready to step on a stage. There's like 1,200 people out there who are all just pumped to be motivated by these great, TED talkers. And I'm standing there and you have the stress of 1,000 suns. And, again, it's the same sort of conversation. Thank you for your power. Thank you for giving me this energy. This energy is going to allow me to serve these people. This energy is going to allow me to do a better job. And perform at my best. And so it's, having an attitude of gratefulness and service, combined with deep breaths. I'm a big believer in deep breaths like these. I've been modeling them right now, but, deep breaths do a lot of amazing things. Especially if you start thinking about flow state, that flow state where hard work feels easy and everything's going like you feel like it should be going. The ideal flow state is when your fight and flight hormones and your rest and digest hormones are both elevated at the same time. They're both maxing out. It's not fight and flight with your rest and digest down. It's not rest and digest with your fight and flight down. Both are at their peak. So you have this weird sense of peace and relaxation that combines with the stress and the push. And by breathing deep, you activate the vagus nerve, which activates the rest and digest, which says, oh, deep breaths mean that, you're strong and you're able and everything's okay. Shallow breaths do the opposite.
If somebody wants to breathe deeper, incorporate that habit into their life as a daily practice, what would you suggest very specifically them do?
The first introduction I had to that was I found after I switched from athletics to computer work, I was getting bummed out and depressed, and I didn't have the energy and drive I wanted to. And went to my naturopath, and she diagnosed, she said, I think you have slow internet induced apnea. I'm like, what? And so I'd be standing in front of my computer, like how you get in that zone where you're like, okay, I gotta send this email, I gotta get this up, I gotta get this done, and then you're waiting for it to send, and like, and you're taking the shallow breaths. And so I took this just a sticky note and put it on the computer, like, breathe deep, and to take a few deep breaths throughout the day, and to do them 2, 3, 10 at a time. Do that 3 times in a day. That will make a huge difference. That's the lowest entry point. You can take breathing classes. Since then, I've taken these holotropic breathing classes. I've learned. There's a guy, Wim Hof, who's really into this breathing methodology of like hyperoxygenating your body by taking lots of deep breaths over and over again. That's a good thing. But to start, put a sticky note on your computer, take 10 deep breaths a day, and go from there.
Awesome. What's something related to performance that people waste a lot of time on that doesn't give them much results?
What people waste time on is trying to find that next hack. I found especially when I was younger, you're trying to look for that shortcut. You're anxious, you're energetic, you're driven, and you're looking for that next hack that's going to give you that leap forward, when really you just need to harden on and do the work. You'll find the hack when you're doing the work. You'll find the efficiencies when you're doing the work. You're not going to find the hack by wasting your time finding hacks. Because when people are looking for high performance, often they're just looking for the shortcut. Really just accept the fact that you want to do something, you want to do it, and it's hard, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to hate yourself, and you're going to hate some parts of the process. But remember why you want to do it, and keep grinding and keep pushing.
There's no substitute for hard work. What software do you use on a daily basis to make your life easier?
I use this software called exist.io. And I think they're out of Australia. It's a guy and a girl, and it's all about life tracking. So it tracks my work habits, it tracks my email, and it tracks my social media, it tracks the weather, it tracks my steps, it tracks my location. I have a journal where I track my mood, and I write what has happened that day, and then it correlates it all, and it shows me things that shows how different activities are related to one another. For example, I use social media more when I go on long walks. Now that the software told me that, it makes sense, because you're out there, you're like, oh, this is beautiful, I want to share it. It's amazing. Or another thing it told me is that I have better sleeps on the days I do yoga. Interesting. Okay, so I guess I've stretched my body, I've got less pain, so I can go into a deeper rest state. That's interesting. That's one piece of software I really like. Exist.
Very nice. Coincidentally, I was telling you before this interview began that I felt good today. My energy levels were high. I felt better than I have in a few weeks. My wife and I did an hour of yoga, actually just last night. There you go. Correlation. What does your daily food and supplement intake look like?
Every morning, I'm a big fan of mastering the first hour. When I was younger, my first hour was about exercise and journaling and self-care. Now my first hour alternates between self-care and caring for my children. I really want to set them off on the day. So my first hour usually contains oatmeal and some kind of seeds in that oatmeal, and then eggs and vegetables. So I grow my own garden in the back, so I harvest greens and different vegetables. And every morning, oatmeal, seeds, eggs, vegetables, no matter what. On the road, I try to imitate that as much as I can. From a supplement standpoint, I usually take a multivitamin, some omega-3s that are fortified with D vitamins, And then I alternate through random vitamins or supplements as I see fit. So I'll have a probiotic, run through a phase of that, or right now I'm having extra vitamin C and resveratrol just because.
Why? Just because? What's the determination as to those extra supplements?
Vitamin C is something that's been proven. It's really hard to overdose with it. And the way that you know that you've overdosed with vitamin C is that you start to get a little bit of gut rot. And so it's simply a good building block for the body. Resveratrol is an antioxidant. It's in red wine. It's, again, antioxidant support. And I feel like having regular intakes of antioxidants is a very good thing. It's another reason why I'm a big fan of matcha tea. I like drinking matcha tea, which is very high in antioxidants. It also has less of the caffeine spike and crash of coffee. Less addictive than coffee as well. I like vitamin Ds. Vitamin D is really important, especially, I live up north where we don't get a lot of sun, especially in the winter. So vitamin D is very important in the winter for people in the Nordic climes. Multivitamin is good for just rounding out the bases, making sure you have the nutrition you need. And, omega-3s, it's good for heart health. It's good for a lot of things in a lot of systems in your body.
So you spoke about your morning routine. What does your evening routine look like?
Get the kids to bed. We usually have dinner around 6, and then we're big fans of the family dinner. So we eat together as a family. We make dinner together. We eat together. We clean up together. Get the kids, read them stories, tuck them in. And then, my wife and I might, talk for a little bit. We've been staying up late recently because we've got a green space near our house that's slated for development. So we're just doing some civic action campaign work. So we're staying up a bit later than we normally would, just to, save the green space, save the park. And then we probably, then we lie in bed, watch some Seth Meyers.
How do you maintain your daily routines, your daily stuff, keep up your output with the kids running around causing chaos everywhere?
Grace. And I don't. There's a certain acceptance that needs to be made. You have to make a choice in your life. What is your choice? Do you choose to be the best dad and the best, family member or parent that you can? Or do you choose to be the best business person or the best athlete or whatever you're trained to be that you can? And everything has give and take, and everything is a choice, and you can choose whichever you want, but you need to make that choice for yourself very consciously. And so if I look back to the time before I had kids, and even when I had even just like one kid, I was able to really drive hard. And then every kid, usually there's about a year and a half around like the end of the pregnancy, the child is born. You've got to take this child and teach them how to, sleep and eat solid foods and, make sure that they feel safe. And work productivity just goes down when you're raising children. And that's, you made the choice to have the children. We're smart enough to, if you want to be a hyper-productive person, in broader society, don't have children, because children change your life. If you want more love, if you want, more support, if you want to have a more rewarding life, I would say have children, because but if you do have children, make sure you invest in them, because they'll only give back to you what you give to them. So, as far as a family balance thing, there's, you have to make sacrifices in different places. And then, I even saw this as an athlete when I was training for the Olympics. I didn't have any kids, and I didn't want kids. I saw people who had kids trying to push their limits as Olympians. And often what would happen is they would either be a very bad parent or they wouldn't achieve their potential as an athlete. So And I think that's just that's just a fact of nature. Children take a lot of work, and they're worth it.
Are you a rabid fan of any blogs or resources online? And if so, which ones specifically?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is School of Life by Alan de Botton, who's a British philosopher. Whenever I've been dealing with psychological crises or trying to figure things out, he has great videos on YouTube that go through the top philosophers and their way of thinking and why they argue certain ways of being. And so I found that resource to be very helpful, the School of Life.
Are there any books that you reread every few years? And if so, which ones?
I always come back to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Myself, I'm a pretty avid reader, and I love reading lots of books. But his book was based on his research of reading hundreds, if not thousands, of books, and then trying to figure out some commonalities between them. They're all, how to be a better leader, how to be a better parent, how to be more productive, how to have more influence on other people. So yeah, that's that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Great book.
If there's one truth that you could help my listeners understand about life, what would it be?
Life is suffering. The moment you come to peace that you are going to suffer, the suffering is not so bad. Suffering about suffering is the worst. But just suffering, you can deal with it. But don't suffer about suffering. Life will be hard at times, and that's just the way it is. You can work through it. You have the strength. Just keep grinding, stay focused, and eventually it gets better.
What are some resources on suffering that they could look up?
Well, Ryan Holiday has a couple of great books, right? The Ego is the Enemy, The Obstacle is the Way. And then there's, some people have rewritten, a lot of this is in Stoic philosophy. So Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Cicero has some good stuff. So there's looking into Stoic philosophy, I think would be of help, as well as it's a great book coming to mind by Mark Epstein. He's a Western trained psychologist who got interested in Buddhism, and he's got a book called Falling to Pieces Without Falling Apart. Great book. So Buddhism and Stoicism, 2 great philosophies to explore.
I'm with you. And I'll add one as related to suffering that I've read in the last 6 months is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Also, very powerful account of suffering and using your inner suffering to transcend. So, all right, man. Where can my audience find you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs. Well, come look for me on my website. I post blogs at creekspeak.com. So you can go there to read some of the stuff I put out. I hang out on LinkedIn. That's where I do most of my work because I find I do more business to business type transactions. So LinkedIn's where people go to make money, and that's where I hang. And so if you want to chat, come find me on LinkedIn, and you can always send me an email too through my website as well.
Awesome. And you got a book coming out.
We're looking to publish a year from July. It's called Inches. It's about finding joy on the journey, which is often filled with suffering. It's finding joy at the destination, which is often filled with empty promises. And it's finding joy beyond the destination. And it's all about taking that next inch, finding that next step forward.
And I just want to add in my 2 cents. I got the preview copy. I read it. I loved it. I know that there are actionables for people to apply, incorporate into their own lives that will make them happier, more fulfilled, more productive. Just really great book. Check it out.
Adam Kreek, inches. My man, thank you for coming on the show. I very much appreciate it. It's been an honor. Great experience.
Yeah, it's amazing, Brad.